Welcome to Muskegon Rising, a community service project of the Muskegon Rotary Club. Our purpose is to create lasting positive change. We've been doing that here since 1916. So, let's get started.
Welcome to Muskegon Rising podcast, a Muskegon Rotary project. My name is Nick Green. I am one of the hosts, and today I am joined by Paula Kendra from the Nelson Neighborhood Association. Paula, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Nick. I look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Let's get started. So, Paula, tell us about your role in the Nelson Neighborhood Association and how long you've been with them.
Okay. My husband, Jim, and I just moved to Muskegon 6 years ago and found out that we were part of the Nelson neighborhood. I didn't know what neighborhood our house was actually located in until we moved. And I was thrilled to join a neighborhood association. 6 years ago, I started with the group and started volunteering for different committees. And just this past February, I was elected as the president of the organization.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Myself, we just moved here in July, and I had no idea. I kept seeing this Nelson neighborhood sign, and I was like, what is that? And then I looked you up and ran into you a couple times at some events, and I was like, oh, that's what Nelson neighborhood is.
It's all about, yeah, right. We're all about building community.
Do you know off the top of your head kind of where it runs, where it stops, and where it starts?
Sure. I can tell you the boundaries of the community. We go from Muskegon Lake to Laketon Avenue.
Okay.
And then from 9th Street to Terrace Street.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big location. There is lots of diversity there. We have everything from residents who live in, $1 million houses on the lake to the rescue mission on Laketon Avenue, everything in between. And there's also, of course, the commercial district in the middle of all of it. Yeah,
melting pot.
Yeah.
Huge melting pot. So how long has Nelson Neighborhood Association been in existence?
As far as I know, it's since the 1950s. So we've been around a long time. There's been a lot of different permutations of the organization. I've learned that at one point it was a fully staffed organization that did a lot of work in housing. But that was in the past. And I think it's been since probably the 1990s that it's been simply a community-based organization all run by volunteers.
Okay. When you did the introduction, you said you joined a committee. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different committees within the Nelson Neighborhood Association?
Yes, there are.
Could you give us some examples of that?
Sure, I can tell you all about that. So, the organization is formally a nonprofit organization. So it has bylaws and a board of directors. Mm-hmm. And because we are, recognized by the state of Michigan as a nonprofit organization, we have to have officers of the board. So there's that structural side to the organization. Mm-hmm. But the real work and the real exciting part of what we do is just volunteer-led initiatives that local community people are interested in doing. So we have a few different organizations or committees that people are focusing on right now and different initiatives. One of them is called Adopt a Lot, and there's a woman that's part of our organization who several years ago had this idea to take care of the lots that were just empty, abandoned lots in the neighborhood where housing had been torn down. They were kind of unsightly, and they were a place where people would throw garbage, and people might just gather and hang out. And so she started this idea of having neighbors take care of that property. And so we have an agreement with the city of Muskegon that we have neighbors that volunteer to mow the grass and pick up the sticks and keep it looking nice. And it's really come a long way. And actually, we have a smaller and smaller number of lots to take care of every single year because there's so much housing being built in Nelson neighborhood right now. So that's one initiative. We also have our community gardens, which is a very big deal. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. But there are two gardens that we manage ourselves, and then there's a third garden that we partner with a local church on. So gardens are another part of it. We're also very interested in having access to the shoreline. So since a lot of our neighborhood is actually physically on the shores of Muskegon Lake, we have residents who are very, very interested in making sure that we have access to that water. There aren't foundries in the way or, lumbering companies any longer. So we want to make sure that all of our residents have access to that water as well as the entire community.
Yeah, it's important.
It is.
That not just the $1 million houses on the shoreline have access to that.
Exactly.
So let's deep dive a little bit more into that Shoreline Access Committee.
Okay.
Can you kind of walk us through what some of the initiatives are?
Yeah, sure. There's really three major things that group is focused on. One is promoting water safety. So believe it or not, there are people that live right in this neighborhood, right on the shores of Muskegon Lake and the Muskegon River. And, we're not very far from Lake Michigan.
Right.
There are lots of people that never really have access to the water and never get on the water in any way. So water safety is a big issue. So we do offer free kayaking lessons that
That's
residents
really
are able to participate in. We have lots of kids that do that, but we also have adults that come, and that gives them the opportunity to be on that water in a very safe, easy way to get on the water and see a lot of not only the shoreline of the lake, but they also can kayak up into the river as well.
Yeah.
So that's one way we help people learn how to be safe on the water. We also work with other organizations that offer water safety classes at the local pool. So at Muskegon Heights High School, and when the Neal Fitness Center used to have a pool that we could use, they would do water safety classes there, swim lessons, and they did stuff for kayaks, like if your kayak tips over, how do you get back out of the water, that kind of thing. So all types of water safety issues. So that's one part of what we're interested in. Another part of it is stewardship of the ecosystem of the whole waterways. So think about learning about what is the watershed, where does all this water come from and end up in this lake? How does it come down the river, go into Muskegon Lake, get out into Lake Michigan, making sure people understand that.
Yeah.
So we actually have done the last 2 years, Nelson Neighborhood sponsored a cruise on the W.G. Jackson research vessel, which is part of Grand Valley State University's Annis Water Institute. And very often students go with their classes out on that boat and do science experiments and that kind of thing. But
That's
the
really
general
cool.
public doesn't have access to it very often. So
Yeah.
we have sponsored a cruise each of the last 2 summers where just neighbors could sign up, and for free they could go out and cruise on the lake and do the science experiments and learn about the water. So
Is it just a day-long thing, or is
it's
it...
just a couple hours in the evening.
Oh, okay.
It's really fun. I did it the first time. I mean, you actually get to go inside and do some science experiments and look at the water and what's in it and what's on the bottom and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Some things you might not want to know.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Nothing scary.
Yeah.
Maybe
No,
some
that's-
things you don't want to dig up in the mud, but
Right. That's
But-
really cool.
yeah, so that, and then also, we work with other local organizations to do cleanups, like shoreline cleanup, on around, what do you call it? Earth Day. They do go out and do cleanups of the watershed, and you can pick up trash along the side of the beach and that kind of thing. So we work on all of those kinds of things, which is really about nurturing the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then finally, the whole idea of making sure there is access to the water is the other thing. So as we go through development, we work alongside the city and the developers to make sure there is public access to the lakeshore. And a couple of ways we've done that advocacy work. One is to host shoreline walks. I mean, we have one volunteer who just said, I will take people on walks every Wednesday throughout the summer and into the fall and just walk them along the shoreline. It's a free exercise, but you get to learn about what's happening.
Right.
With, learn about the water and the beach itself, but also learn about what's going on with development and where might you want to raise your voice in advocacy for making sure we all have access.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance of developing Muskegon and also preserving the nature side of it, right?
Exactly.
The ecosystem and making sure that stays intact. So
Yeah.
it's good to see both sides working together a little on that, as far as this is how we protect our waters, this is how you access them, this is why they're important, but also, it's important for Muskegon to continuously develop the city and
Exactly.
what that looks like for everybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. So they work on it from a wide range of perspectives. But there's definitely a group of people that are very passionate about that water that live in our neighborhood.
Well, it creates a line of education and communication too. So, someone might not be really into something being developed on the lakeshore until they experience it and are educated on it, and then, might open their eyes, or it might start another committee for you guys or something of that nature, So it's really cool that the city is so willing to work alongside you guys with
Right.
that, especially with the Adopt a Lot.
Right. And some of those city officials have even participated in those shoreline walks. So
Right.
it gives people access. It gives people access to the actual city officials who are making decisions on our behalf that we elect. But it's in a very casual setting that's very comfortable. We don't always have to be, at a city commission meeting, which
Right.
has this different power dynamic to it. It can be this very comfortable recreational setting.
Yeah. It creates a level playing ground and humanizes the whole experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
Right.
So you mentioned community gardens.
Community gardens, yes.
Association just received a pretty handsome grant for that.
Yes, we
And
did.
let's talk how those funds are going to be used. What's the vision? What's the end goal
Yeah,
for
sure.
that?
We are so grateful to the city of Muskegon for choosing our application. We submitted a grant request to work on all three of the gardens that I mentioned earlier. So there are two that we manage. One is called the Roger Allison Memorial Garden, and the other is the Mike Miller Memorial Garden. Those are both named after people that were very active in the neighborhood association who helped start gardening, community gardening for us, and then also made financial contributions to our endowment. So we're very happy about those two gardens. One is on 6th Street, the other is on Muskegon Avenue. And then the third garden we participate in is run by First Congregational Church. And that one is over on Jefferson, I believe it is. And that's called the Saturday Morning Breakfast Garden. And so we participate, heavily in that one as well. The goals with the garden have always been to not only give people a place to garden, so you can actually reserve a plot in any one of those three gardens. Well, our two gardens for sure. You can reserve a plot and it's yours for the summer, and you get to plant whatever you want in it and tend to it and take care of it yourself, which is great for people who maybe don't have a yard that they could create a garden in, or they don't have the type of yard that would be conducive to gardening in it. So they can use the space like that. It gives the people who garden the opportunity to meet one another and build relationships among one another. It also helps us produce food that, a lot of times people grow more food than they can consume themselves. And so we also give some of that food out to local neighbors for free. We share the produce with them. We also do some education through those gardens. So the grant that we received, this $100,000, which seems like a huge amount of money until you start talking about all the work that needs to be done.
Right.
We are looking to do really three kind of major things. One is to improve the effectiveness and the aesthetics of those gardens. So they have been put together over the years by volunteers for very low cost, and we'd like to upgrade the aesthetics of them a little bit. We'd also like to see them be able to produce more yield. And so some of the beds need to be rearranged and put in a more orderly fashion, maybe to have more beds available. We'd like to have more people engaged in the gardens. And we also want to continue the education piece. So this summer, we just happen to have some new people move into the neighborhood who know a lot about gardening. And we're able to start some educational efforts. And we're going to continue those and having some funding to get more materials for them to use and make more connections with other organizations that want to do that kind of work is really going to help us out. So a lot of education, a lot of upgrading of the physical facilities themselves. We just did a visioning session recently with all the gardeners saying, we had these plans for these grants. What exactly do you want to do with your individual gardens? And I think every single one of them said, we need like a shed to have like a washing station. So when we pick our produce, we can clean it there and then bring it home and it's not full of dirt and a mess. We can actually do some things with it and then have better facilities for the education piece. I mean, we have a couple of picnic tables at some of them, but we need to upgrade those facilities so that we can hold, more education sessions and then continue to just have more and more people be involved. So that we just need to use the space better, I think, than we are right now, more efficiently.
Is there a lot of youth involved in that?
There are lots of kids involved. At First Congregational Church, a lot of those students, I believe, come from their church congregation itself, but they also come from Club 188, which is an organization within one of the churches here locally, and they serve kids throughout the summer time. They give kids things to do rather than have to be home alone or, be out running around with nothing to do. So Club 188 is a place where they can participate, and they work in all the gardens. So we do a lot of education with the kids about where is food grown, how is it grown. I mean, a lot of kids have never seen, anything pulled out of the ground that you could eat before, right?
Where's that vegetable come from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that what that looks like? So so there are lots of kids involved in the education piece and helping us with those gardens as well. So it's a really cool project.
So revitalizing the gardens with the grant funds are going to create more youth programs, create just general education throughout the neighborhood.
Yes.
And be able to produce more produce.
Exactly. That's exactly the plan.
Awesome.
And we have a couple of years to use those funds, so we're not going to see every single change made next spring. But we're definitely in the planning phases of it all right now. And we'll be spending those funds by the end of 26, I think.
No, that's great. Yeah. I appreciate you speaking on that. It's always good to people understand where the funds are going if they do get grants within the city too. So the big vision on that, I wish you guys luck.
Thank you.
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys do a lot of like the Adopt a Lot program, the community gardens, the water access. We just kind of talked about it, but like the ecosystem. You guys protect like land values pretty well because, abandoned lots with overgrown this and that. I mean, that affects property values. You're keeping up with the ecosystem. It sounds like you have a really like holistic approach within the Nelson Neighborhood Association.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
It is. I mean, and to me, the amazing part of that is it is all grassroots, homegrown stuff.
Yeah.
This organization isn't like most other organizations that I've worked with, for-profit or even more organized nonprofit.
Right.
This organization doesn't have a top-down kind of hierarchy. We don't have a strategic plan that we're following. We have neighbors that are coming up from a grassroots level saying, I'm really passionate about this. Can this organization give me some structure and some connections to help me, explore this area further? So, Shoreline Access truly was driven by one person that was very interested and passionate and just got more people organized. And we help amplify those efforts. I think that's a good way to say it. The neighborhood association helps people get organized and then amplifies what they want to do much more than directs what's going to happen within the neighborhood. And I think that's a healthy neighborhood association.
Given a voice.
Yeah. So it evolves over time.
Yeah.
I mean, our former president of the organization, Larry Spataro, who passed away this year.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. He was such a terrific leader for our organization, and he was very much in favor of letting the community decide what this neighborhood association was going to be and what it was going to do. And I think that was really smart leadership. I think that was really terrific forethought on his part. I'm not going to ever try to drive any particular initiative. I'm going to let the neighbors decide what they want to do. And I have very much the same vision. I would love to see more and more neighbors involved. And I think as our community continues to grow and as we continue to redevelop the neighborhood, we just have more and more voices. And like I said at the beginning, we are very diverse. It's a very eclectic neighborhood, very diverse talents and ages and races and economic levels. So we have a lot of different interest and skill sets available to us. We just need to bring more and more people together.
It's always good when you bring people together.
Yeah.
We need more of that, I think, in this world right now.
I think so. Let's find out what we can agree on and work on that, right?
Yeah. So 2 key words you just mentioned, develop and grow. That's kind of the forte of Muskegon. How has the development and revitalization of downtown impacted Nelson neighborhood?
Wow. I'll just speak about the time that I've been here, which is only the last 6 years, right? Which means I came in when a lot of this development was already very much underway. I've had people tell me stories about what it used to be like. I mean, this neighborhood association spent a lot of time making this a safer neighborhood. There used to be a lot more crime, I believe, and there used to be a lot more drug use and people being afraid to be outside their homes and that kind of thing. And a lot of work was done to negate those efforts. And so I am very fortunate that I'm one of the people that came after a lot of that work was done, and I feel very comfortable throughout this neighborhood. I'm very proud to say I live in this neighborhood. So I think as we continue to have this neighborhood evolve, as downtown evolves and changes, it's a great thing for the community. I mean, it definitely helps us as homeowners, have increased property values and great quality of life because there's so much going on downtown.
Yeah.
So many fun festivals and bars and restaurants and, cultural events and all that kind of stuff. But I also think we need to keep a finger on the pulse of the people that have already been here for a long time.
It's important.
And, gentrification is a word that comes up a lot. And I don't know how much the neighborhood association can do about economic gentrification, but I do think we can play a role in social gentrification, which means we need to make sure that everybody feels comfortable being here. There are residents that have lived in this neighborhood for decades and decades, and we don't want them to start feeling uncomfortable in their neighborhood because they don't recognize it any longer. But we also want new people to have a voice and be able to see things evolve. So that's a very fine line, and it's a tough thing, and I can't tell you that I know exactly how to do that, but we're working toward making sure everybody has a voice and an opportunity to participate.
Yeah, I think you even recognizing that is a step in the right direction. So kudos to you and the association for keeping your pulse on that and seeing where it's going to go. My family and I attended one of your summer picnic events.
Good.
A lot of fun.
Good.
I waited like 25 minutes to introduce myself to you. I don't know who was talking to you, but they wanted to talk to you really bad apparently. So,
no.
You guys did that really fun event. Muskegon Police Department was there. I think fire was there at some point. It was just a melting pot. Everybody from the neighborhood was there, I think. How does Nelson Neighborhood Association continue to foster the community engagement and you guys strive to maintain and grow? The community gardens, all that. Talk more about the events. You guys planning any more events? Do you do anything in the winter?
Yeah, well, events are interesting. The event that you're talking about is called Nelson Neighborhood Night Out. It's National Night Out. So that's a national program that is done with local law enforcement units to try to build relationships between police departments and neighbors.
Yeah.
And so I think almost every neighborhood in Muskegon, I think there are 13 neighborhoods in the city of Muskegon, and I think almost every one of them had a night out event. And we are fortunate that we get a lot of people that come to ours. We have a beautiful little park called St. Joseph Park that we hold that at. So we don't have to be in great big Hackley Park, which is also in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate about that. But now, St. Joseph Park is a small little pocket park on Monroe where we hold that event. And I think a lot of neighbors feel really comfortable there. It's very centrally located.
Yeah.
And so that's fun. We've tried lots of other kinds of events. And it's interesting, what are people comfortable with? And I have to say that since I've been here, the events that we've held where people are invited just to come to a picnic in a park seem to be the most effective ones and the ones that most people come to. And we would like to have more social events like that. We've hosted a lot of different events where we were presenting information to people. So information about, say, our gardens, or information about the housing study that the city did and what were the results of that. We seem to get a mixed bag of people come in there. Some of those are more popular than others. So I think people are looking for ways to just socialize with one another, and we do want to continue that. We do have a community engagement committee, which works very hard on a lot of initiatives to bring people together. One is to build our email newsletter list. We have over 500 people on our mailing list right now, so there's a monthly newsletter that goes out. And we have continued to really grow that in the last few years. So that's one thing we want to do, is be able to reach the people in our neighborhood and share information with them. So we use that as a way to inform people and then invite people to participate in things. So we've also then tried to come up with different kinds of events and things that people might want to come to, and Neighborhood Night Out is definitely the winner, hands down. People like that event the best. So that group is working on what else can we do to host events that allow people to just come together in a social atmosphere to build relationship. I think, not everybody's ready to jump in and join a board of directors or join a committee even, but people are more willing to come to a picnic or a hot dog roast and start talking to each other. And then they're a little more comfortable saying, oh, well, I could stop by a garden and see what that looks like. Or I might be willing to help with a lot and mow a lot for Adopt a Lot program or do a shoreline cleanup. I think we need to create more comfortable ways for people to enter into the organization and get involved. So you need, not everybody will just jump in and become the president of something, right? That isn't everybody's skill set or desire to participate in that way. So we need to come up with lots of different ways for people to connect. So we're working on it.
Food's always a great start.
Food's always a good start. Actually, we just were talking about that at my meeting about a week ago. Yeah. Let's just keep feeding people. They'll come.
That's the way to people's hearts, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yes.
Fastest way to someone's hearts through their stomach.
Yes.
So just keep doing hot dogs and whatever else you guys did at the association picnic. No, it was a lot of fun. There's bounce houses. There's a ton of stuff. Kids are out playing, and
it
was really great.
Good.
Adopt a Lot.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that for a minute.
Okay.
Keeping up with the, I guess, vacant lots, things of that nature. Housing. You want to touch on that and maybe talk a little bit about what Nelson Neighborhood Association may be able to do in partnership with the city to develop some of that in the future? Or do you want to go there?
Well, no, we can talk about housing. One of the things I'm really proud of, which I had nothing to do with, but I am proud that my neighborhood is this one. Nelson was the first neighborhood that went to what the city refers to as form-based code, which means we have zoning ordinances in our neighborhood that are a little bit different than the other neighborhoods. And that form-based code, which I cannot quote to you exactly what's in it, but it allows much more variety in the types of structures that can be built in our neighborhood and the types of housing that's built. And so while everybody doesn't get very excited every time we say we're going to build some more multi-family housing, a lot of people like single-family residential. We have been more supportive of that, and our zoning has allowed more of that. And in this recent housing study that was done by the city, we found that there's a huge need for multifamily housing. And so I'm really proud that we have been able to successfully bring duplexes and townhomes and apartment structures into our neighborhood and integrate the people that live in those places into the neighborhood association and make sure that they know they're welcome. So the neighborhood, has had these different types of housing. We've also been the neighborhood that has been most willing over the years to have lower income housing built into our neighborhood. So we really, truly have this very eclectic mix of expensive homes and housing that, people get
starter homes
and, and even people that need support and need some rent assistance can live in our neighborhood as well. And so I think that's exciting. I happen to live in a townhome that is directly across the street from a apartment complex that is for people age 55 and older. And they are mixed levels of income. Some of those are market rate apartments. Some of those are apartments that people receive rent assistance to live in them.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. I mean, it works perfectly. If I didn't know that fact, I would not know that based on the people that I see around that apartment complex. I don't know who's who.
Yeah.
My mom actually lives in that apartment building, and people get along great. The space looks good. It's well maintained. It's very successful. And so I know that it can be done. And I know that your neighborhood and, your own block can be enriched by living with people from lots of different kind of backgrounds. So I hope we can just make sure that all of the neighbors feel that way and do what we can to help the city in building the types of housing that's needed.
That's great. Speaking of that, I don't know if you guys, the Nelson Elementary, you guys have a pulse on what's happening there?
Yeah, we actually, so this is one of the great things about being part of a neighborhood association is when an organization like Muskegon Public Schools wants to get a message out to a neighborhood, the first place they come is to a neighborhood association because you're organized and they know that you have a meeting structure where they could come and make a presentation, and then you have a Facebook page and a newsletter where they can get their messaging out. So We were recently visited by Matt Cortez, who is the superintendent of Muskegon Public Schools, along with Lynette Marks, who is the president of the school board. And they shared with everybody that wanted to come to that Nelson Neighborhood Association meeting their plan for Nelson School, which is to, right now it's being used as a school, right? It's an elementary school this year. The kids from Marquette are there this year, and they will be returning to Marquette School next year. And then what they want to do is turn that into an apartment complex, much like the one I was just discussing, where it will be, I think, different levels of rent will be paid for those different apartments. But it's a really big win for us because that iconic building has been part of this neighborhood for generations.
It's an amazing building.
It is a beautiful building.
Yeah, a beautiful yard in the back with where the soccer fields currently are. It's just a gorgeous piece of property.
Right. So the idea is to keep the soccer field for the neighborhood, to keep the playground for the local kids, and then turn the building itself into apartments. And I know that the organization that is looking to develop that building is looking to get, I don't know if you'd say it was grants, but they want to get money for maintaining the architectural integrity of the property. Yeah. So they don't want to, put some kind of fascia over top of that so you can't see that beautiful building any longer. They want to keep the historical significance of that building from an architectural standpoint there. So it's exciting. I mean, and we need more housing. I mean, this city desperately needs more housing. So we're happy. We're happy we could keep the school, and we are happy that we could keep the soccer fields. So I don't know that that's 100% a done deal. Yeah. But that's the proposal they came and talked to us about. So we were then able to share all of that information through our newsletter. So if you weren't able to attend the meeting, you could still click on links and see the drawings and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to be in the know for Nelson Neighborhood, you need to be on our email newsletter list. We would love to see everybody who lives in our neighborhood get involved in one way or another. And the best thing you can do to start getting involved is visit nelsonneighborhood.org. That's our website. You can find all kinds of information about how to become a member. It literally costs $5 a year to be a member. And anybody who actually lives in the neighborhood or has a vested interest in the neighborhood as a business owner or a member of a local organization is welcome to join. And so please join us and learn about what kind of opportunities are available. Sign up for the newsletter. You can find more information about that with a link on the website or just look at nelsonnews.org. And you can see all the different cool things that are going on in our neighborhood and find out how you can get involved. And we would love to hear your ideas. If there's things you want to work on and you're passionate about and you live in Nelson neighborhood, we would love to hear from you.